I glued up this blank of white oak, and it's 3 1-inch pieces to give me a 3-inch by 3-inch square blank. And from this I was going to turn my table legs, and as often happens in woodworking, you start something and you run into trouble, and in this case I ran into trouble with my lathe. I can't get my lathe to turn at a constant speed. I start running it, trying to run it around 1600 to 2000 RPM because of the oak. And it seems to, I don't know, bog down. I went online and purchased already turned legs. The advantage of this is that, well, here they are, already turned, and it only took about a week to get them. The disadvantage is that these are 2.5 to 3 times more expensive than the raw wood, but they come out exactly right, an exact copy, each one. You can see that they're exactly the same. They're very well done, very well packaged, and I'm pretty pleased with them. So this is what we're going to work with. This is the lumber that I'm going to use for the apron, the sides of the table, if you will. These 2 pieces and that piece. And I need to rip it down to 3.5 inches, because it's going to be 3.5 inches wide. And I'll have to cut it to length. But while I'm here, what I want to do is I want to make sure that this is square. And it doesn't matter where you buy your lumber. If you buy it from a box store, if you buy it from a sawmill, you always want to square up the ends. We'll do this. So you can see here how out of square that is. So I'm just going to square it up. And this makes quick work of it. There you go. All the edges are now square. I've spent the better part of an hour marking and setting up for this next evolution. I have a dovetail bit in my router table. I have the fence of the router table set so that I will cut exactly 1 inch from this edge in. The stock that will make up the skirt is 1 inch thick, so it will come out to 1/2 inch in this direction and give me a 1/2 inch reveal. I'll show you that when I'm assembling it, putting it together. I'll be able to make 4 cuts this way, and then I'm going to have to reset the table, because when I go to cut this one, you can see that it's not set up properly. I have a stop block here because I want the cut to go 3.5 inches down. The material that I'm using for the sides is 3.5 inches, so that makes sense. And each leg is marked with these markings so I can keep everything in the proper orientation. I spent a great deal of time setting this up, and you saw me just run the first piece. I ran a test piece before this, and I'm looking at my cut, and it looks like I didn't go far enough. So I'm going to do some more measurements, and it looks like I may have to move this in this direction just a little bit. I should have checked my test piece for that, and I didn't. Almost did all of that machining without videotaping any of it. I started with little test pieces like this to see how they would fit. And when I got what I wanted in this one, I went ahead and went to the actual wood that I would be using and did a test piece on it. Now these, I probably did this, I don't know, 8 times before I got it right. But I got it right and was comfortable with how it looked. Ran it on the actual material that I was going to be using, and you saw me do the last cut. So the way this will work is when I'm ready to glue it together, this will simply slide in. And you can see that's a nice joint. And pulling up on it, it doesn't come out. It comes out a little bit, but not much. So it has real good connecting power in this direction. And of course, it'll be glued in. And I'll do the same thing with the smaller ones. I have to get some more material to do the bench. But for now, this is everything I need to do the base. It's March 9th, and I want to inlay this with gold leaf. And the way I'm going to do that is take this gilding adhesive and fill in here. It goes in, it's got a slight color to it, kind of a bluish green. And when it dries, kind of like contact paper, it will be white. And at that point, I can go ahead and put the gold leaf in. So I'm going to start applying this. The gold comes in this booklet between sheets of paper. And I should be able to create some static with a brush and just pick it up and place it where I need it. And that's getting not exactly how I want to do it, but let's see what happens. Well, I think this is the perfect application for this tool. I want to do something a little decorative. Now, this is supposed to be like a country table, so nothing too fancy. I'm just going to put a groove along the rails for the bench and the tabletop, and it's just to break the profile up a little bit. And I'm going to run 8 pieces through, all at the same location, and hopefully this does it for me. And just like that, I have matching grooves on all of my rails. That makes quick work of it. And more importantly, my hands are nowhere near the blade. Now, I don't know if you caught it, but on one of the pieces, I wasn't set up against the fence, and the wheels grabbed it and started moving it, and I managed to yank it back. Something that I need to watch out for in the future. Little explanation about the way I'm going to attach the tabletop to the rails. This is one of the rails for the bench. You can see I put the decorative groove in the bottom, and then if you flip it around, you will see that I've cut a dado in the top. And then I took the scrap pieces, and I'm making cleats, and I cut a 1/4 inch post, if you will, 3/4 inches deep, and that will slide into the dado that I've cut, and I will drill a hole in the bottom and drive a screw up into the bench or the tabletop, and that will hold it in position. And to cut the dado, I'm using it's a stacked dado head cutter, basically 2 saw blades up against each other, and that'll cut a 1/4 inch groove. And I've set the fence back so that it cuts that dado in the perfect location. And now I'll just run it through. There's a good view of the stacked dado head cutter. It's 2 outer blades that are 1/8 of an inch thick, and then I also have chippers that can go between those and create up to a 3/4 inch wide dado. Cut the bench top to length. Now it's time to cut the tabletop to length. I've measured 5 feet and put my track on there. Grab the saw and just run it through. And that's it, a 5-foot long tabletop. I'm doing some of the final milling on these pieces. And what I want to do is, I just want to knock this edge off. It's a sharp 90. In fact, you could probably cut yourself with that. The way I'm going to do that is I put a roundover bit into my router table, and this ball bearing will ride on the wood, and I've got it raised just a little bit, just to round it over a little bit. I'll use this same bearing to put a detail on the tabletop. Let me show you how it works. You can see it's just ever so rounded over slightly. If I put it flat on the table, you can see the slight gap underneath it, as opposed to this side, which lies perfectly flat and there's no gap underneath. This I'll just leave as is because the bench seat will be sitting right on top of it, and there's no way for little hands to get in there and cut themselves or scratch themselves. I'm ready for glue up, and I'm going to take this in stages. I'm not going to glue the whole base up at the same time. It just gets a little unwieldy. So I'm going to start with the long rails first, and I've put some tape on so that I can minimize cleanup. And I don't know how effective that will be, but we'll give it a see. These are sliding dovetails, and this table is long enough that my clamps aren't going to work, so I'm going to use this to clamp. I want to check, I want to double check, I want to triple check to make sure that I'm doing this right. I don't want to glue this rail into the wrong dovetail on the base, and I've spent some time checking, double checking, triple checking. Now it's time to just start gluing up. I'm going to put a generous amount of glue in the dovetail. Spread that around. And now we slide that in, and slide that in. And that's it. That's the first glue up. I'll spend some time doing the others, let this sit for a little bit, and then I'll put it off to the side. And then I'll do the other long rail. And after they dry for a while, I can come back and put the short rails on. The next thing is I have to do an edge treatment on this table, and what I've elected to do is a round over, and I've installed a round over bit into my router. It has a ball bearing here that will ride along the edge, and I'll do a round over profile on the top. I'll do it in several passes, and then I'm going to flip the table over and I'm going to do a chamfer on the bottom. I'll show you that when I get to it, but for right now, let's take a look at this. That's it. 3 passes, and I get the profile that I'm looking for. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it kind of dips down, a little shadow line, and then a round over. And that's exactly what I wanted. I toyed with whether or not I wanted to do the chamfer on the bottom. This is 1.5 inches thick, and this 90 degree right here, although I've eased it with sandpaper, it's still a pretty hard corner. And with 2 little boys who probably get on the floor, I think I should do something. So I decided to go with the chamfer, and all the chamfer is an angled cut, but I do it with the router. And that's it. That's all the machining that we're going to do on this. You can see it takes just a slight angled cut, and then we have the round over down here. And the machining on this tabletop is done. So here's the blocking. Slide it in. Spread this just a little bit to get it in. And then it fills into the dado. And then I can, with some gentle persuasion, bring it down into the corner. And now I will add glue and push it all the way in and glue it into place. And that's the blocking, and that prevents this thing from racking side to side. Gluing up the table now, the skirt to the table. I already have the long skirt done, and now it's time to do the short end. Takes a little bit of balancing to get this right. Miranda wants a whitewash finish, and I've never done this before. So I've sanded to 220, and now I'm just going to go ahead and put the whitewash on. You put it on pretty thick. The directions say with the grain, and I've read against the grain. So I'm going to go with the directions. I put polyurethane on the bottom already. I'm not going to stain the bottom. Directions say leave it on 5 to 15 minutes. This is what Miranda wants, and I'm using polyurethane on it because there are 2 little guys in the house and 1 big guy, and I want to make sure that it's rugged. Wow. Turning out better than I thought. I like it. I hope she does. That's what the wood looks like before any finish. Looks just a little pink to me, which is fine. And you wipe off as much or as little as you want. And like I said, if you want it darker, you can come back and put a second coat on. It all comes down to this. Hours and hours and hours of sanding. That's part of woodworking, a major part of it actually. When you make something like this, you spend a lot of time thinking about the people you're making it for. I say that repeatedly in my videos. This niece is the niece that I've known. Well, I can't tell you how long I've known her. That would give her age away. And people might know who it is I'm talking about. So, we're not going to do that. We're not going to give away how long I've known her. But I've watched her grow. And I've watched her raise her children. And as with my other nieces and nephews, it's really kind of special to watch how the next generation does. If the time should come to pass that they ever want to do something else with this table, they can sand it and start over. This is 1.5 inches thick tabletop of white oak. Has kind of a lavender hue to it. I think I said pink before, but now it looks lavender.
Ready? Flip. Flip. Okay.
Yeah, pretty.
Holy